Okay. All right. I guess we'll just start. Okay. Well, good evening, and welcome to the Hastings City Council Candidate Forum, sponsored by Hastings Happenings. I'm Tom Bullington of Hastings Happenings, and for the next 90 minutes, we'll be hearing from the 4 candidates for the 2 open at-large seats on the Hastings City Council. First of all, I'd really like to thank Our Savior's Lutheran Church for hosting us this evening. Now remember, tonight's forum is not a debate, so there will be no interaction among the candidates, questions or fistfights, please. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give an opening statement. Then candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question they are asked. I'll be keeping track of time also. Questions were submitted by Hastings Happenings readers, and audience members may submit questions tonight as well. If we don't get to your question tonight, that's okay. I'll give the candidates a chance to respond on Hastings Happenings, either on Facebook or at hastingshappenings.co in the coming weeks. There are cards and pens in the back, and an usher will help you if you have a question for the candidates this evening. Now, when you vote, not if, but when you vote on Tuesday, August 12th, please note that there will be 6 names on the ballot, including former candidates Tom Wright and Blaine Hornbuckle. Both of those gentlemen have withdrawn from the race officially, but they'll still be on the ballot. And we have heard that if one of them finishes in the top 4, the candidate with the next highest number of votes will take their place on the November 4th ballot. So you're looking at the finalists that will be on the November ballot this evening. 2 of these people will be elected to the Hastings City Council in November and will begin a 4-year term as an at-large council member, so representing the entire city, to a 4-year term in January 2015. So let's get started by introducing the candidates. Mark Vaughan, Lori Braucks, Ian Martin, and Joanna Bayers. So what we're going to do this evening is we'll start with Mr. Vaughan, and he'll have a 2-minute opening statement, and then he'll pass the microphone over to Lori. And the first question that I'll ask will go to Joanna, and then we'll just kind of keep going back and forth. Does that make sense? Okay, and just remember you have about 2 minutes. I'll try to keep track and hit the buzzer when you're out of time. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks everyone for coming today. I appreciate it, and thank Our Saviors for letting us use their facility for this. And thanks, candidates, for showing tonight. It was a good experience for us, and I'm excited for tonight. About myself, as Tom mentioned, my name is Mark Vaughan. I've lived in the city for almost 40 years. My wife, Beth, has been married for 19 years, and our 3 girls, Mary, Martha, and Molly, are with us tonight. I appreciate you guys coming. Myself, I graduated in Hastings in 1987. After that, I went down to Red Wing Technical College for arena and recreational facility management degree. From there, I got hired at the city of Northfield, but I've been at the city of Eagan for 19 years. I work in the Parks and Recreation Department. I got a great job. I get to oversee a civic arena. I get to outdoor water park, Cascade Bay. I also oversee adult sports, and I get to work with our youth over there in the athletic associations. For work, when I get home though, when Beth and I chose to come back to Eagan, I wanted to be involved. So I jumped on and I applied and got on the Hastings Parks and Recreation Commission. After that, I went over to the Hastings Planning Commission, and I'm currently on the Charter Commission, and I was lucky enough to chair all 3 of those during my 12 years. I get this question a lot, why do you want to run for council? Or better yet, what's your platform? That's a tough thing to answer when you just want to be involved. But when I moved back, I wanted to be involved in local politics. I work for a city. I like local politics because you can see results. You get to the federal level, even the state level, it's hard to see results. When we make decisions, I see some council members here today, you do see sometimes an instant effect of what your decision does for taxpayers. So that's important to me. When I moved back, like I shared, Beth, this is a commitment for us to do this. I want my kids to see me get involved in the community. Hope they do the same. Most of all, I want to help shape Hastings for the future. I mean, there's been a lot of council members since the 1800s, and I would like to be one of the future after this November. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
My name is Lori Braucks. I am married to Tommy Braucks, who's here this evening, and we have 1 dog, Teddy. I've lived in Hastings for over 20 years. I was a graduate of Hastings High School in 1997. I've been involved at leadership capacities from high school on through college, and I went to law school at William Mitchell College of Law and graduated in 2004. So my primary life goal has been to be involved in my community in various ways. First of all, in ways that are serving and helping of others. So I am involved in my local church. I go to the Harbor Church in Hastings, and I grew up there as well. And I also feel like being involved in what's going on in the city and serving the citizens of the city is important as well. I feel like if you want to complain, you have to be involved. If you want to have a say, you need to be involved in what's going on. So part of my desire in running for city council and part of my background has been the desire to be involved and to be caring for the neighbors and people that are in my community. So I have a lot of roots here, I have a lot of classmates that are still here. My education was, I was a political science and journalism major at UW-Eau Claire, and then went on to William Mitchell College of Law. And after I graduated from law school, I worked in legal technology. I am a project manager for a legal technology company now, and I work in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And part of what I do is, it's a little hard to explain, but I coordinate large legal matters that need to collect data, and we do computer forensic type work. So I coordinate large matters with top 200 law firms around the country, and I've done a little bit of traveling, both domestically and internationally for that job. I've been there for about 7 years, and I'm currently still there. So that's a little bit about me, and the reason that I'm running for city council is that my time's up?
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Okay. I'm running for city council because I feel like I want to give something back to this community. I've received a lot from a lot of individuals around me, and I feel like it's my turn to give something back.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ian Martin. A little bit about me. I was born and raised here in Hastings, graduated from the high school in 2005. There I was active in National Honor Society, peer court, Young Republicans, things like that. I went on to Metropolitan State, got a degree in law enforcement. I spent a year with the Dakota County Sheriff's Office Water Patrol, as well as an intern here at the Hastings Police Department. And I'm currently now with Metro Transit as a police officer working in St. Paul. So I deal every day with people, and I guess that's always how I've been wired as a people person. With issues or people, I have compassion, and I see all sides before I jump to conclusions on anything. Just like people, no two issues are ever going to be the same, and I pride myself on getting all the facts before coming into something with a predestined decision on that. So I live here in town, just built a house in the Century South development last year. I really saw how well Hastings is run with building permits, inspections, things like that. There was no holdups from anything down at City Hall. So I think we're in a great spot. I'm a young citizen, and I want to get involved. I currently serve on the Heritage Preservation Commission, and I guess that really started the ball rolling on wanting to be a part of local government. My father retired from the sheriff's office. My older brother is a city administrator in a suburb of the East Metro, so I guess it kind of runs in the family. So giving it a shot here to see what happens in November. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Joanna Bayers. I received my Bachelor's of Science degree in Political Science and Legal Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Superior. And during my undergraduate, I participated in collegiate hockey. I was the captain of the national mock trial team, and I got to travel to Bosnia-Herzegovina, where I studied the aftermath of the war. In 2008, I received my master's from the University of Minnesota Duluth in advocacy and political leadership, where I did an internship for Jeff Anderson, his Duluth City Council at-large race. I also did an internship for the Minnesota Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome. And after college, I actually received a job from them and was played a major role in successfully passing legislation related to fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. I'm not originally from Hastings, but I'm originally from Ely, Minnesota. And so when I moved down to Duluth, I went to college there, but I wasn't ready to settle there. And so when I was looking actually to settle down a little bit, I was looking for a place to call home. I knew I wanted something with a small town value and small town community connection. And so when I drove over the bridge for the first time in Hastings, I knew that was perfect. It was very historic, just like Duluth was, and I knew it was a small town. But it wasn't until actually I moved into my first home and my neighbors were outside ready to greet me and welcome me with their open arms saying, can't wait to meet you, can't wait to get to know you. And then I knew I was ready to settle down and call it home. And so the great thing about Hastings is because of this small community connection and the welcoming. And I wanted to ensure that we stay that way, that we stay welcoming to businesses and to people alike. And that's why I'm running for city council.
Thank you. That was almost exactly 2 minutes, so thank you. Maybe what I'll do is have a 30-second, just a mark and just raise my hand like this if you have 30 seconds so you don't get caught short. Joanna, if you were to describe Hastings to someone who had never been here before, what would you say?
I would say, first of all, I'm on the Public Safety Advisory Commission, and so I think our public safety department is amazing, so that's what I described the first thing. And then I would say Hastings is very unique. We're sitting in a unique geographical location. It's a small town, but it has all the conveniences of a big town. And so that's really what makes Hastings great. I can go out my backyard and go snowmobiling and go hunting and fishing, just like I would up north. Or I can go to Target or go to Maurice's, and I can drive to work right downtown in St. Paul. And so I would say Hastings is a small community that really cares about each other, that has opening arms and ready to welcome anybody.
Thank you.
I would describe Hastings as a standalone community with historic roots that I think we are all proud of. At least I am anyway. We have distinct borders on 4 sides. My backyard is a cornfield, so I know all about that. We're not another suburb that just starts and ends at a different street. We have an excellent school system that I was brought up and raised in. We have we have a strong church network, and people genuinely care about this town. There's people I know that have lived here for generation after generation, and I really think that speaks well to the community. It's not a bedroom community where we sleep here and live somewhere else. We truly are a life cycle community where you can be born here and retire here and live here up until the end, and that's something that I think is fading in a lot of suburbs that just want more and more and more. I think growth is good to an extent, but rehabilitation and revitalization of what we already have, I think, is what makes Hastings interesting. With the riverfront, all the excitement down there, the new bridge, the car shows, things like that. I think it's really opening people up to the little nuances that make Hastings an interesting place to live.
I would describe Hastings as many of my friends have, which is it's a good place to have a family, to raise a family. It's a good place to bring your dog to the park. There are parks everywhere. There's a park down the street from my house in 2 directions that I can bring my dog to. There are great people, which I think is the remarkable thing about Hastings. When I walk the dog, when I go to the grocery store, I can barely get out of there without running into at least 3 or 4 or 5 people that I know. And I think the good thing about that is that people genuinely connect with each other, people care about each other, and we also have many great assets that some of them have already been mentioned. We have the bridge, we have the riverfront, we have the history of being an older city in the state of Minnesota. We have a beautiful downtown. We have city council that cares and that lives close to us. We know them, they know us. We have a lot of assets. We have affordable housing, we have rental housing, we have single-family housing. We have great schools and one thing that I think is remarkable is that we still have strong arts and music in the schools, which a lot of schools are lacking now. That still is important to the community and well supported by the community, as well as athletic programs. I think that we have a lot to offer, and I'm very happy to live here.
It's tough to follow when you guys covered everything that Hastings is. I mean, Hastings is true, I agree, Joanna. It's home to people. I mean, if I was to invite someone here and visitors, it's a great tourist place to stop. I mean, we're close to the Twin Cities. Location is probably the major asset that we have. We're just far enough away from the Twin Cities, but we got uniqueness with two rivers coming through. We have good partners in town from the schools to the churches to all the nonprofit groups. It is truly home, and that's why Beth and I chose to come here. It's all about, Beth and I had great experiences growing up here, and we want those for our kids. So I think it's all about the equation. That's how I look at it, is what can we offer new residents and what we already have, or what do we need to change to make it that vital. Rivertown Days was a great example of that's what Hastings is. Everybody came out, everybody got to see each other again, and it was a big festival, and I think that was important that Hastings was able to put that on and to show people what Hastings is all about, especially if you're new.
Great, thank you, Mark. So you get to start with this. What role, if any, do you think the city government should play in attracting new businesses and jobs to Hastings?
I think we could be we can be a part of it. I don't think we're all the answer, but we need to make sure that we're up in front. City government is leading the city of Hastings, but we need to work with our schools. We need to, just like I mentioned, all of our partners, our churches, even our residents. We need to reach out in our businesses to make Hastings attract people. That's what it comes down to. So I think the short answer is we can be the leader, but I think we have to be the conduit that keeps everybody together. We have a chamber that we can work with. City Hall is always going to be here in my mind, and we're going to be the consistent part that's going to keep the new residences that come in, the businesses that leave, the residents that come, the residents that leave. We need to listen to them. We need to listen to the visitors, and City Hall could be that person, that body that brings it all together. So I think we can. I think we can be the leader is what I would recommend. We can't do it ourselves, though.
I think the city's role is primarily one of marketing in the city, basically marketing to the surrounding communities and making sure that the story of Hastings, all the things that we already said, is well known throughout the Twin Cities metro area and also in the state of Minnesota. So I don't see it as the city of Hastings needs to grow, and I think we do need to grow, but I don't think we're lacking any of the things necessary to grow. I think that we just need to get better about telling our story, both locally in the Twin Cities metro and broader, so that people know that we have affordable housing, and they know that we have these green open spaces, and they know that we are a good place to live. I think if we tell that story, and the city is good at marketing and telling that story in Twin Cities publications, out in the social media sphere, and also just getting out and networking with other cities and doing more marketing of what we have and letting people know, I think that would go a long way to growing the city and also just telling people the story of what we have and what Hastings is. I think that's the city's role.
I would agree. I think Hastings has an excellent image in the metro area. I think we owe a lot of credit to Hedra and John Hinsman for creating a lot of those programs, one of which is the Land for a Dollar program. That has enabled a lot of businesses to come to Hastings and prosper. It's something like $11.1 million has been brought in since 1997 when that program came out, and 120 jobs have come here due in part to that. So I think if we can continue rolling that out to real estate brokers, things like that, to make them aware that we do have those programs in place, that could help. Also, we have a commercial loan rehabilitation program that primarily has been used for multi-dwelling spaces. I think if we possibly expanded that to businesses that could come to the city and borrow money at a lower interest rate than a bank could offer them, that would encourage reinvestment in already established businesses here that would not only make them more marketable, but that would increase the taxable revenue the city would get on the business. So it's hard to, be a whisper in someone's mind to say, start a new business. We just came off a very tough time from 2008 that everyone, every city has had to endure. So we're not any different than anywhere else. I just think that we could have our focus on that. So.
I think the city could do a lot, actually. The city is the one that has the negotiation, chip in their hand. And if we market correctly, we could go to businesses, ask them what they need. What would it take for them to come to Hastings? I mean, we can tell them about our story. We can explain, look at this land, look at these programs that we have. But we really need to go and start, asking these businesses, why don't, telling them about us, and why aren't you coming here? What can we do to help you create jobs here in Hastings? Because look at what we have. And so by just kind of going to businesses and, asking them, what do you need? What would it take you to move to Hastings? Because let me tell you all about it, and let me tell you about the great things we have here to offer you. And that's where our negotiation comes in, because we'll survey the city, kind of see what our needs are, what the residents' needs are, and then we go and kind of pick and choose what businesses we would like to come to Hastings and what would be the best benefit for Hastings.
Thank you. All right, Joanna, you start off this round. What past actions or decisions by the current mayor and city council do you disagree with? And would you have worked for a different direction or outcome?
I wouldn't say I disagree with anything. I may have done something different, but the outcome's always the same. I really believe that our city council and our mayor have our best interests at heart. I think it's hard when you look at you're working together as a team, that it's hard to always agree on everything when you're in that team, and so there's always compromises. So if we do something one way, not everybody's going to agree, but that's where compromise comes into play. And so there's not issues. I just would the big thing is I hope that we'd market more and get some more businesses here that would create jobs, that would really kind of increase our tax base a little bit.
Speaking for myself, without being directly involved in government, hearing all the facts, being in City Hall, I can't honestly answer that question.
I have been thinking a lot about the effort and energy being put into the temporary sign ordinance, and I do wonder whether we should have put as much effort and time into it as we did. I realize that it is important to have it aesthetic value in the city and to have everything look put together, professional, presentable, but a lot of time and effort and energy went into the sign ordinance, and I don't know if that was worth all of the time, effort, and energy that went into it. But I understand the necessity of it, and I don't know specifically how I would have done anything differently other than a lot of time was spent on it, and I think there are maybe some bigger issues to pursue.
Looking back when I was as the chair of the Charter Commission, I think we missed an opportunity when Mike Slavic was elected to the county, and it provided an opportunity for the council. I still think our council missed an opportunity there, that we should at least took in some applications and listen to what the community had. We could have got some good ideas, even if we would have still selected. Ed has done a great job all through the years. He was a great fit to fill the role. But Lori and I talked about this when we were on the Charter Commission. We still missed an opportunity to hear what the public wanted. We may have got some great ideas out of that, and I think we missed an opportunity.
Thank you, Mark. Do you consider Hastings to be part of the Twin Cities? Why or why not?
We're right on the edge. We watched the YMCA. They're a great example of, are we in the Twin Cities or are we out of the Twin Cities? I would consider us a second-rate suburb, and I would say no. Where Hastings is home. This is our town, and I don't think we're part of the Twin Cities, but we've got great location to it.
I think that we perceive ourselves as being part of the Twin Cities. I mean, we are a very commutable distance to St. Paul and Minneapolis. There's many people that live in the city that commute 25 minutes. I drive to Eden Prairie, that's about 45 minutes. So I think it is part of the Twin Cities in the sense, in my mind. I think in the broader metro, it's maybe not a part of the Twin Cities. It's a little more isolated. We don't have public transportation that comes to Hastings and takes people to the cities. So I think in the general public's mind, I think that they would see us as kind of on the outskirts, kind of like what Mark said. But in my mind, and maybe this is just because I have to drive through the middle of Fort 94 every day, but I feel like we are part of the Twin Cities, and we're very close, if not in it.
I definitely think we're a part of the Twin Cities. When I tell people where I'm from, they kind of gasp and say, really, you drive from Hastings? And I always have to correct them and say, you know, it's so different than living in like Anoka and working in Minneapolis. So I think that's one of the walls that we have to try and start to break down with people, is just get them to realize that it's only 20 to 25 minutes from St. Paul. We just have a river and a bridge that separates us and some cornfields, and we're in St. Paul. So I would definitely say we're a part of the Twin Cities.
We always joke at work that I kind of live on an island, because I always talk that I can get to 55 or I can take the bridge. Either way, I have to cross the river to get to work every day. I really think, we're kind of in the Twin Cities, but I mean, when I think of the Twin Cities, I think of my way home on 61. We go through South St. Paul, North Newport, Cottage Grove, and you kind of see everything. You see all the houses look alike, and you start seeing all this development, and then you get nothing for a couple miles, and then you get Hastings. And so I really think that kind of, right there stops where the Twin Cities starts. And I think there's a different feel here in Hastings than what they do have in St. Paul, Minneapolis area. And so I think we're more outskirts of the Twin Cities.
Okay, Joanna, you're next. Do you favor implementing a transit tax that would increase transportation options for Hastings?
I don't know if it's a transit tax. I do believe in some transportation. We are definitely in need of, we have an aging population, and as much as Hastings does expand, east and west, north and south, we do need have to have viable options for residents to get around. And I don't know if the transit tax is the most appropriate way, but I'm definitely interested in looking for ways that we could support it.
I don't believe a transit tax is the answer. I mean, growing up as a kid, I remember the track buses that ran around town. I would take them to Walmart to buy fish, and it was great. You had little tokens that you would put in the fare box, and you would call down to the track bus office, tell them where you needed to go and where you needed to be, and it would happen. So I think if we had that then, there's no reason we couldn't have that now. On the local level, I know that's important to seniors that don't have a car like you and I do to get around. So I think people hear transit and they're automatically thinking St. Paul, Minneapolis, like express buses, which is great. I work for Metro Transit. They sign my check every 2 weeks. So that's also important too. And there could be feasibility studies done by transit-oriented development. The Met Council has those people in place that could do that. We could get some surveys going here on the local level to see if Hastings could support having express bus service to St. Paul. It sounds great, but a lot of people like the independence of their car. They think trains are bright and shiny, and that buses are kind of stinky and everything else. So there's no easy way to implement transit, but I think getting some surveys and feasibility studies done would be a great place to start.
I would like to know more information before I said whether I would be in favor of a transit tax or not, but what I think there have been already discussions with the Met Council about having an express bus type service from Hastings to downtown St. Paul or Minneapolis. And my understanding of those discussions is that the tax would start before the service would start. And so my question would be, well, how long are we going to pay the tax before the service actually starts, and how many buses are we talking? And I think there's a lot of details that we have to know that just haven't been ironed out yet. So I don't know, I would want to know the feasibility and how it would be used, if we would have enough people here that would be willing to use it before I would say whether I'm in favor of that or not.
I agree with Lori. I would say no at this time. I need some more statistics to prove that it is really needed. I'd like to hear from residents. Do they think it's a good thing? And I think what Ian says, is it a tax for around our community, or is it a tax that's going to get our community connected to the Twin Cities? So I would need more statistics. Right now, I'd say no.
And just to clarify too, when I put my hand up, that means you have about 30 seconds. So just a clarification. Okay, so far in 2014, tragically, there's been 2 violent deaths in Hastings. A man was recently shot and killed in his front yard, and another was beaten to death in the Perkins parking lot. And we're only in July. Do you think Hastings is a safe community?
I do think Hastings is a safe community. Those are unfortunate incidents. That's simple. But I think historically Hastings has had a great police department. We've had great fire, medical. We have it in our hometown. And I think one of the biggest assets is what Ian had said. We have a sheriff department we're the county seat. Our sheriff department is close. So I think that we have all the assets here. We had some unfortunate incidents, but I believe Hastings is a safe town, and that's something we should promote.
I would agree with Mark in that, in general, I think Hastings is a safe place to live. I have many neighbors that don't lock their front door and leave their garage door open. And I've left my garage door open so long that I've had a police officer come and stop at my house and ask me to shut it. So I think that I feel when that happened, I felt like people were looking out for me, that my neighbors are looking out for me, and the police department is looking out for me. So I feel like we are a safe community, and it is unfortunate that things happen and tragedies happen, but I think tragedies happen everywhere. And I know a lot of the police officers personally. My husband was a police officer in Dakota County for 8 years, so we have connections with a lot of the police families, and they're good people, and they're people that went to high school with me and have been here for a long time, and they care about the community as well. And I feel like the public safety, both police and fire, are well supported, both by the government and by the citizens. So I think we have a good thing going.
Those 2 events were tragic for the people around them and the city as a whole. But I guess in light of that, those 2 incidents were extremely isolated and they were targeted. Being a police officer in a city like St. Paul, I see a lot more crimes of opportunity, homelessness, things like that, where people prey on others. Hastings doesn't have any of that. I take my dog on a walk. I leave my garage open. It's been that way since I was a kid. It's a really tough thing to respond to in law enforcement. And I know Chief Schaefer and the BCA are doing all they can do. But when you have an incident as isolated as that, there's no one answer or, blanket thing you can do that is going to make people feel safe. If people are educated and they understand crimes and have a very basic general knowledge of law enforcement, they'll understand that was an isolated event.
I think Hastings is fairly safe. I have the most respect for our public safety department. I work with them quite a bit as being on the Public Safety Commission. I've actually had the opportunity to shadow our fire department and get to meet some of those people, and how hard they work is just truly inspiring. I think they're a little understaffed, and I think there's some efficiencies we could do, to get more staff out on the streets, to do some more community involvement with the police officers. But I think they work really hard. They're great people, and unfortunately, we've had some, acts of violence. But I don't think that should be held against the people of Hastings. I think people are generally good.
Thank you. Should Hastings be working to attract new Americans or immigrants to our community? And is community diversity important, and why?
I believe community diversity is very important. I grew up in a small town in Ely, and so there's not a lot of diversity going on in Ely. And so when I moved to college, that's when I saw a lot, and I felt maybe I was a little bit naive. I didn't know as much as everybody else did. Like, what do you mean we have all these different races or people, and these people come from where? And so I think it's very, you learn a lot about the culture. I've had the opportunity to, develop a volleyball program in Ghana, in Corfu Regia. It's a rural village off of Accra. And I've also had an opportunity to do some volunteer work in Namibia, in South Africa. And they're very diverse, and you learn so much from other cultures and other people. And I just think, it just brings a lot to the city.
I think over time it's going to happen. Just in the time I've grown up here, I've seen diversity unfold in the schools. Historically, our ancestors came over and they were living all together, and then over time, people started branching out on their own, and I think that's still evident today. I see it up in St. Paul quite a bit with the Hmong community and now the Somalian community coming in. They're heavily reliant on services, interpreters, people that set up housing, just a general knowledge of where to go to get food. People from those countries have never had the option of going to a supermarket. So for them, something that we take for granted is brand new. And I think Hastings is over time it's going to happen, but I don't think right now it should be a focus of ours.
I think it's important and it is desirable. I think it will happen when we attract more businesses to Hastings, because what I see is working in Eden Prairie. I work at an end of Eden Prairie where there are a lot of townhome developments, and a lot of the people that live in those townhome developments are Somalian, African immigrants, people who are from somewhere else. And what's attracted them to live there is the fact that there are big businesses there that are operating in Eden Prairie. A lot of the Eden Prairie businesses are technology companies, so you have a lot of people from all over the world who want to be a part of these technology companies who have moved to that area. So I think that as we see business growth, and part of that other growth that will happen is residential growth from people who want to be a part of those businesses. So it's hard to say, do you want the businesses to grow or the people to grow? What needs to grow in Hastings? I think both need to grow, and when they grow, I think they're going to feed each other. So I think it is important, and I do see it happening in the future. And I was at the YMCA the other day, and I was looking out at all the kids that were playing on the playground, and I was thinking about what a different place Hastings is from the time when I was in high school, and I'm very appreciative of that and glad that that's happening.
I don't think our role is to go out and invite or promote it. What I think we do is need to prepare, because I think Ian's right, it's going to come, and I think we need to get our partners together. Our schools got to be prepared, and we as a city staff and even residents need to be prepared. I think growing up here, I see some diversity coming. I think it's great. I think it's great for our community, and we need to keep being prepared for when that we can react to. Are we prepared for the questions and answers that they want to bring, if it's either as a resident or as a business?
Great, thank you. So if there were one thing about Hastings you would change, what would it be?
That's a tough one.
Just start the clock.
You can start the clock. It's a hard one because I enjoy Hastings that much. If I had to change something, that's really a big challenge for me. But I think what I want to see Hastings do is work together more often with our partners. We need to really, we need the schools and the cities and the nonprofits and the youth groups. I want to find an opportunity where we can bring them together more often that makes sure we're doing the right thing together for good of the whole community. So that would be the one thing I would change, is try to connect everybody.
I agree that connection is important, and I think that it's one of the assets of Hastings is the fact that we are growing, but we are also staying have the small town community feel. So I think what I would say if I had to change something was that I think Hastings needs to grow. And I don't mean growth in a sprawling sense, but just growing, attracting more residents, more businesses, and then in that making sure that those people get connected to what we already have going on here. And I think that's important because it's a major asset that we have to offer, is that connection and caring for each other. And I think that as we grow, we're going to have to learn how to embrace other ethnicities, other types of communities, and I believe we can still do that while still maintaining a small town community feel.
I think Hastings is in a great place, and that's why I want to be active and be a part of it. My goal is that my, I guess, younger age, I'm getting a few gray hairs now, will get people open and willing to hear issues and not just always have an opinion. There's a great quote that always comes to mind: an open door policy on a closed mind doesn't do a whole lot of good. We can all talk and talk and talk and have opinions, but until people are open about change, it really is going to be hard to do. So hopefully this coming fall with some new blood, I'm not looking to shake anything up or jump through hoops, but just get people involved and be open, put myself out there for whatever issue, large or small. Let them know that they can come to me and that their opinions and thoughts really will be heard.
There's not much I would look at changing. I know we change all the time, and so it's just really about adapting to the change. And I think Hastings does well adapting to different types of change, and it's just kind of looking more, being knowledgeable about what's going to and take precautions or take steps to help us bring us through change in the future. And so there's nothing much I would change. I really like, I love Hastings. I love living here, and there's not much I would change otherwise.
Okay, question from the audience, and we do have some time here, so if there are additional questions from the audience, please feel free to fill out a card. You guys are doing such a great job at answering these questions very succinctly, so that's great. What is your strongest asset that would allow you to best represent the citizens of Hastings, and why?
I think one of the strongest assets I have is the ability to listen and to hear, and hear people and actually communicate with residents. I think the biggest thing that we can do is to listen to our community members, because they're really the ones that are the expert in certain subjects. They're the ones that know, what's going on or what needs to happen. And so I think my biggest asset is, the ability to listen and then take it to the team and, make change for it.
I would say humility would be my greatest asset. I think every leader needs to have a certain level of that to be effective. I'm not going to sit up here tonight or any other night or any article that's written about me and say I have all the answers. I don't. And I think that's what makes me good for this position, is that I acknowledge that, and I have an open mind to ideas and thoughts about issues. And I'll do everything I can to see through to come to a workable outcome that all sides can be happy and walk away from.
I think my greatest asset is my legal experience, in the sense that I've spent a lot of time reading laws, analyzing them, thinking about their impacts. I've worked as an intern for both the legislative and the judicial branches. I've had some extensive training and job experience in looking at laws. So I think that is one of my strengths, and something that I could bring to the council is I think you have to have an ability when you're writing an ordinance to think about all the impacts of that ordinance, and so my brain already works that way because of my education. So I think that's one of my greatest strengths that I bring.
One of the strengths that I get complimented at work a lot is I try to find out what other industries are doing, and I think what I would do here is I would try to find out what other cities are doing, what other counties, what other businesses, and try to make it work in our community. I'm not saying what we do in another town is going to work in Hastings, but I have success with trying to take that concept, massage it a little bit, and make sure and see if we can make it to work in our community. So that's an asset that I'll bring.
Thank you. Another question from the audience here. The Riverfront Renaissance has been in the paper a lot recently here. Please give your thoughts on this new initiative by the City Council. How would you help implement the Riverfront Renaissance?
Initiative is a great word because I think it's a great start. I appreciate what we have done. I went to the meeting the other night and seen the concept drawings. I sat on a few commissions before that, trying when we had some plans that we just couldn't get off the ground. Hastings has taken the right step. By us taking that first step to say we're committed to doing this, and it's going to be a 3-year process. I appreciate that we're not going to do it all at once. I think that is important. Riverfront Renaissance is good. My only question to you is we just need to make sure we maintain what we build. And I think our community members want to hear that, and that's something I'll push for.
I think the plans are exciting, and there has been a lot of enthusiasm already on the facilities and the plans that have been drawn. And I think it would be great to redevelop the downtown because we have a lot of examples of other towns like Stillwater and Red Wing that have really great downtown areas that are frequented by tourists, and now we have the bridge, so it's going to be the first thing you see when you come over the bridge. I think it is important, and I would like to see us even push for some different kinds of businesses if we can, and work with the landlords to make that downtown more attractive, because we can do all the curb and gutter and make it look really nice, but I think we also need reasons for people to come down to the downtown area, and so we can create those opportunities or work with businesses to create those opportunities. But I think we are going in the right direction, and so far, from what I've seen, it looks great.
I would fully agree, and I would agree with Mark that the 3 phases was a smart move with all the construction that specific area has had to endure over the last few years. I'm also glad to see just a paradigm shift to parks, open space, public use versus several years ago it was the Three Rivers condos that were going to go up, which caused quite the uproar in town. So, I think it's a great spot for what they're going to use it for. I definitely think the arts could be utilized down there. Have some bands, things like that. Bathrooms will definitely help with the trails being in that area, and then also. The Bella Vista restaurant that's coming in, I sit on the Heritage Preservation Commission, and we just approved their plans, and I think that's going to be a great addition right there near the bridge next to that trail to get people back into downtown.
I think it's a great idea. I'm excited for the downtown businesses because I think it's really going to help spruce up the businesses by having, getting people down to the waterfront area and going shopping. And I think it's a good example of ways that the city actually can help, some of our local businesses and help our existing businesses get a little bit, more of a business.
Thank you. Okay, another question from the audience here. What is your vision for the future of Hastings? So just overall, whether that's growth or business. Talked a little bit about transit, recreation. What do you see maybe Hastings being in about 10 years from now? What would you like us to be?
Well, I'd like to see our school enrollment boost up a little bit. And so with that, I'd like to see some young families relocate here. And I think a way we can do that is by, getting some jobs out here and getting some businesses that are hiring and paying good wages and getting some transportation. And I think that, will help entice families who may work in other cities to come here if they're able to commute, and getting jobs here I think will help families come and buy a place to live because they have a good paying job, and that'll help our schools quite a bit.
Several areas that I hope to see evolve and develop over the next 10 years would be the addition of more senior housing units. The baby boomer generations, my parents, things like that are going to need a place to live. And I think people really do love this town. They don't want to leave. And we need to make sure we have accommodations in place, whether that's rental properties or condos that are geared toward the senior living lifestyle. Also, I think, infill redevelopment would be good. I think the city could clean up some properties, purchase them, and market them ready to go for a business to come in and build on, versus a business having to buy a property, tear down what existing building is on that piece of land, and then go about putting up their business. So I think if we eliminate some of that footwork right off the front end of things, that could potentially drive some new business growth into the city.
My vision for Hastings is that of growth, both residential and business growth. I think we need both, and I've kind of already touched on that. But I think the analogy of a city I've been thinking about that's similar to Hastings, we had this long series of years where we've had the bridge under construction, and I was thinking about Shakopee. They had a lot of years where the 169 bridge was under construction. A lot of my coworkers live in Shakopee because of their commute to Eden Prairie. And they did a lot to make their city attractive. They're growing by, I think, 5.5% a year, which the average growth per city in Minnesota is like 2.2%. So they're more than doubling the amount of growth. And part of that, too, is attracted shutterfly. So there's going to be a shutterfly factory opening in Shakopee, which is going to create 330 new jobs for that area. So I guess when I think about Hastings, I'm thinking about those kind of things. How do we attract a business like Shutterfly, where we could create 330 jobs, and our residents could have jobs in town, not need to commute to the Twin Cities. There will always be some of that, and that will bring people here. So I think when you get those two things feed each other, people coming here, then the city looks more attractive to a business like Shutterfly, and then you have a business here, and then I think it just feeds itself. So we need to somehow sort of kickstart that cycle of growth for both the residential and the business growth.
In 10 years, I want to see Hastings grow, but I want to do it in a smart way. I think we need to take care of our infrastructure first, meaning our parks, our roads, our services that we offer. Let's make sure we have all that check and balance. And to create community, Joanna's right, our school numbers are not great, and so we need to get families here, and I think the only way we're going to do that is get some more jobs. That's what we're missing. We need to convince some businesses to choose Hastings, but before that, we got to make sure that we're open, that we're ready, and we can react and be prepared for this, and look in our toolbox, see what we have to help bring them here, but I want to make sure we do it the smart way.
Another question from the audience. What are your thoughts and ideas on the city government's role in sprucing up the south end of Highway 61 or the Vermilion Corridor? Such things as derelict businesses really aren't a good first impression for motorists coming into Hastings. Just your thoughts on that.
One of the ideas or concepts I have, I think we can create some districts in the community. I think if we look at the Midtown, that's kind of, if you read the book about Hastings, how it went from the downtown to the Midtown to the West Town and then off to the south. We need to make sure that we're taking care of that. So we go back and talk about the riverfront renaissance. We can talk about the growth there and make it better, but we need to make sure that all of our communities are being taken care of. We can do that, and I think by creating districts, it's going to be kind of themed. Businesses are going to attract businesses, and we need to listen to the residents. We need to listen to the current business owners and businesses that want to come here. We need to go educate ourselves and find out what makes a great equation to the south side, or if it's the west, midtown, or even on the west side. We can do this, but we just have to do a lot of planning.
I agree with Mark that the planning is important, and part of it is that it's hard to control what businesses spring up where, and so I think that we, as the city and the real estate agents and everybody, we need to work together to try to make some of those things happen, because I don't know if the city in and of itself can make make it happen. I think it's more of a collaborative effort among the city, the businesses, the real estate agents. I think we need some sort of collaborative effort to try to revitalize some of these areas, because I think the city alone, it's a difficult thing to do.
I think, like I was saying before with the infill redevelopment, if the city could approach the owners of those vacant lots to feel them out and see what it is they're looking for, and whether or not it would be a fiscally responsible and intelligent thing to do for the city to potentially buy that property and prepare it for business. Also, maybe step up code enforcement. There's a criminal justice theory out there. It's the broken windows theory that, if you leave one window broken, it just kind of spirals. If the neighbor has long grass, soon your grass is kind of going to look the same, and things like that. So, maybe adopt a more aggressive approach in that corridor with those businesses. Get some plants hanging from street lights, things like that would encourage those business owners to spruce up their businesses.
I think everybody's pretty much covered. I mean, I think it's always a good idea when you're making a big decision is to talk to the businesses, talk to the residents, and then the city is the one that makes the decision, but they're making the decision on behalf of businesses and residents. And so the more informed they are, the better. And so I think it's a good collaboration group that they should have in making that.
Okay, well, there's 800 some, maybe 850 cities in Minnesota. If you're looking at other communities in Minnesota or even outside Minnesota, is there a prototype out there that you think Hastings should be like blank?
I've actually had an opportunity to travel to many cities in Minnesota, and every city is different. They all have their unique characteristics. I don't think you could ever have one like another, and I'm glad you don't, because that's what makes Minnesota, Minnesota, and that's what makes our cities special. And I think we all have our pros and we all have cons, but I don't think there's one out there that would be better than another.
I would agree. That's why people choose Hastings, is because of our nuances that we have. 33 parks, 20-something miles of trails, hopefully a 34th park in the form of a dog park for our dogs to play in. Little things like that you just don't see in other places. I've traveled all over the country, and one thing that I would say Minnesota has as a whole that we all take seriously are our park systems. And I think Mark could probably agree with that other parts of the country don't even have trees. And once you leave here and you see that, you really come to appreciate what we have. So.
I don't have a specific city in mind that I think that we should model ourselves after. I think there are aspects of other cities that we could take notes from. I think I've mentioned a couple like Stillwater, Red Wing, Shakopee. There's good things that different cities have done, but I agree with both Ian and Joanna that we're unique and we can embrace our uniqueness, and that doesn't mean that we can't do things better, we can't grow and become better, but I think that we have a lot to offer and we should just improve upon that.
Agree. Hastings is a great town, but I think I go back to I work for a great city, and I see a lot of great cities that when I go out to different conferences and so forth, and they all have great assets that we can take and try to make it work in our community. But it's our decision to make that, but really it's the residents. It's the people that are here, it's the visitors that come. We need to listen to them, and what do they want out of their city? That's what's going to make Hastings what it is.
Ian had mentioned the dog park, potential of a dog park coming into Hastings. What do you think of that idea?
Not opposed to a dog park, because I think it's a good asset that we can help promote the community. Is it the right time? Is it the right location that we're talking about now? need a little more about that. I've talked to my council members about it. I think there's some opportunities in our community that we have already, and the dollars that are allocated toward it could be used maybe towards the Riverfront Renaissance or going into our corridors to help in that area. But a dog park is good. Our residents have spoken. They want them, and they work in other communities. But we can maybe look, is there other assets in our community? We could put it in one of our current parks already.
I am a dog owner myself, and I frequent the Dakota Woods Dog Park out on Blaine Avenue that's run by the county, and I really, really like that. I don't like driving 15 minutes to get there, but so I would favor having a dog park in Hastings. I would really favor that, but I'm the same as Mark. I've seen problems with some dog parks as well. Burnsville, all the talk at the dog park, at the Dakota Woods Dog Park, is about not going to the Burnsville one because they had a water feature and there was algae and some dogs got sick. And so I think whatever we create, we just need to make sure we can maintain it. And so that would be my primary concern. Although personally, I would like to see it. I just want to make sure it's a responsible decision.
I'm all for it, but when you open up something like that, it opens up other potential issues. It needs to be enforced, and I know our police are busy, so I think it might be a good time to get a community service officer in Hastings. Our police officers spend a ton of time making transports up to St. Paul, the detox, over to Shamrock Animal Hospital in Rosemount to bring a lost dog there. I don't think allocating a resource as thin as they already are spread out to, police a parking lot with tags and windows is a great idea. I think, that would be a good point to sit down with the chief and figure out if, now the department's growing, the responsibilities are growing, we have a more proactive approach than we had 10 years prior. Maybe getting a community service officer employed in a part-time position would be a good starting point, along with that dog park.
As a person who has 2 dogs of her own, and I know they're a lot of work, and I love them dearly, and I'm supportive of a dog park. However, I think sometimes we get these great ideas to do things, and these funds can be used for some other necessities. I've said before, I'm a big push that we need some more public safety department members. We need some more firefighters, and so I'd kind of like to see some of those funds going towards that first to make sure that we are a safe community.
Okay, I have one final question, unless there's another one from the audience. Anyone? All right. So this is, last but not least, several communities, including Hastings, have recently debated ordinances allowing, yes, backyard chickens, and they are allowed in many cities. Where do you stand on this critical issue? Well,
I mean, that's a tough one. I know how neighbors stand on that when they have people that have backyard chickens. It really depends. I think, if you're allowed to have backyard chickens, for eggs and other things as pets, maybe, but you have to make sure that they're clean. You have to keep the yard cleaned because it can lower the property value of the person next to you and your neighbors. So you want to make sure your neighbors are okay with that as well. And so whether I support it or not, I'm not sure. That's something where we'd really want to have some kind of discussion with the city and with the residents of the city to see how they support it as well.
That is a very slippery slope. Just with the job I do, you give someone an inch, they try to take a foot. I think if you start allowing chickens in someone's backyard, the next thing is going to be, a goat, so I don't have to cut my grass, because it's hard to have an ordinance like that in place, and it gets back to an enforcement thing. Hastings has, as far as I know, 1 code enforcement officer and police that have a lot higher priority jobs to take care of than policing chickens in backyards. So I don't think I would support that here in town.
I guess my question would be whether there is a demand where the residents are asking for it, because I do know one of my neighbors wanted to buy a horse and have a miniature horse and have it in the backyard, which would fall under the same ordinance as chickens in your backyard, which is not currently allowable. And I know that there are people who, because of the food trends and what's going on with our food sources and other things, there are a lot of people who are going towards wanting to raise their own animals, have their own chickens, and I understand that desire. I guess my question would be whether the residents are asking for it, or it's a few people or a lot of people. But my initial inclination at living in a neighborhood with close proximity to my neighbors is I don't think I would want to live next to it, and I think a lot of other people would feel the same way.
A flashback when you asked that question. We went through this when I was on the Planning Commission, and I think we came up with a great solution. It was a good education piece. We worked with the Leduc, and I think that's where they're eligible to do it, and I think that's great for Hastings that we can go out and promote that. But we go talk about our location. We're too close to the country. If someone really wanted to have chickens or goats or whatever it is, Vermilion, Hampton, there's options out there. Right now, I think Hastings did the right thing, but I agree, if it comes, the residents want to approach this, then we can talk about it again, but I think we had a good solution before.
Great, thank you. Well, since it looks like we're out of questions, I again appreciate all of your answers this evening. It's time for 2-minute closing statements. And Mr. Vaughan, it looks like you're up.
A couple months ago, I went to the event over at the Tilden Community Center put on by Community Ed. It was a catchy little thing that said how the Constitution helped build the Hastings Bridge. It intrigued me, so I went, and it was a great experience because it's true how close government is to us every day, from roads, bridges, parks, everything it is. So it's important to me, and I'm glad I went to it. But I think the best thing I learned out about the event, and HPAC was helping sponsor that, but Mr. Spinelli talked about it. He says, the best thing about the Constitution is it's set up so we can have dialogue. And I think what we did here tonight is a great example of dialogue. And I think that's connecting the community. We're creating community by doing that, by getting people's input, talking about it, trying to find a solution from that. So that's what I like about it. I got great experience. I've worked for cities ever since college. I've served this city for 12 some years. I'm still doing it. When we chose to come back to Hastings, it was important to get involved. And I will listen. I will serve everybody. And that's what I like about this position, these two positions that are open. They're at large, and I want to represent the whole community, and I want to be elected by the whole community. So I think that's what you're going to get from me. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to try my hardest. I really just want to be a great public servant. And I'll ask for your vote on August 12th and again on November 4th. Thank you.
I think that all of us have the same desire here, which is to better our community, to make it a better place to live, to keep some of the things the same, but also to move it forward into the future. And I think that I have the ability to bring some of my experience, both as a community member, some of my legal experience. I have some leadership experience, and also my time on the Charter Commission, where we've looked at various issues that relate to the city. So I think that what I would ask is, and what I promise to do for the city of Hastings, is to listen and to give all the assets and the skills that I have to the city. I give my best at my workplace and in my family, and I would do the same here. And so I think you can expect from me someone who will listen to you, someone who is honest and candid. I am very candid, and I am known to be by my family and friends, and I would expect the same from any of the residents of Hastings. And I would ask that if you're interested, or if anyone has any questions for me, or if they want to reach out to me and learn more about me, then I would be happy to talk to you, sit down and have coffee with you. But most of all, I think that we're all here because we care and we want to connect with the community. And whether or not I'm in the city council, I am already connecting with my community in various ways and will continue to do so. So I would just appreciate everyone's consideration and your vote if you deem that you would like to vote for me.
I'm just a hometown kid. I just built a house here last year and I have no plans of leaving. So I guess you're all stuck with me either way. So, I guess what I want to get out there is the world is not black and white. No issue is. And I think that's where I excel, is in that gray area, coming to a happy medium. And with a city like Hastings, there are a lot of opinions, and you have a lot of people that don't want to grow, and you have a lot of people that do want to grow. So it's a very interesting environment to work in, and I think it takes someone with an open mind to come into that environment without having ideas and an agenda in their head, and just be willing to listen and then make an educated decision. So I would just ask all of you to get educated, get to know all of us candidates, and just get out there and ask questions. I'm on Facebook. I live at 1151 West 36. I'm always outside putzing around, so if any of you ever see me, you can stop by, and I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you and get your take on what you think is important and what issues we should be looking at.
You might want to start closing your garage door now. I believe what makes a good candidate, you're going to have a tough choice here. And so what I believe is not only is it the person's ideas and drive, but also their character integrity. When I growing up in Ely, I grew up playing on the boys hockey team. And so aside from being the only girl on the hockey team, it really instilled some core values of loyalty and teamwork. And those are those values I keep still today. And some of that is, not only did it lead to those, but it led to my motivation and determination in life. Because I knew if I played on that boys team, darn it, I could do anything I wanted to do. And so I think some of those qualities is what I'd bring to the city council. I also have worked local, state, and federal politics. I've worked with representatives, and I can bring some of those assets of what I've learned from them. I think it takes a lot of compromising and a lot of listening to make a good person that represents the city, and that's what I want to bring. I want to be an effective team member, and that's what I bring to the city.
Great. Well, Hastings, we have a real tough choice to make here. These are 4 excellent candidates, and I appreciate all their time this evening. Again, the primary election day is Tuesday, August 12th. There are other things on the ballot that day as well, so keep those in mind. The general election is Tuesday, November 4th, and these 4 will be on that ballot as well on that day. Again, just thank you to Our Savior's Lutheran Church, and please check out hastingshappenings.co. I'm also on Twitter at Hastings MINN on Twitter, and Hastings Happenings on Facebook. We have 1,200 people on there, so I appreciate all of that. That's all I have for this evening, and get out there and vote. Thanks.